Alright, welcome guys. My name is Jordan Smelly. I'm a peer recovery support specialist here in the state of Texas. Today we're going to talk about self-awareness for job accommodations. But before we do that, I kind of wanted to go over some guidelines first for the group. Please remember, no crosstalk. So while I'm talking, please don't be having a side conversation, or if someone's asking me a question, please don't be having a side conversation with your friends. Be respectful. If you have a cell phone, please make sure it's on vibrate. And if you need to take a call, then please step into the hall. If at any time you need a break, anytime you need a break, just go ahead and step out. Bathroom is down the hall. Here you go. Hi. I think that's about it for guidelines. Also, please don't be on your phone during the presentation. Thank you.
And there is crackers. If y'all want a snack, you can have 3 each. But I'm just going to have one pack open in case this isn't taken.
Okay. Before I introduce myself, I thought we would go around the room, tell us your name and your favorite holiday. So we'll start right here.
My name is Alexa, and my favorite holiday is Christmas.
My name is Brianna. My favorite holiday is Christmas.
My name is Christopher.
What's your favorite holiday? Christmas? Christmas.
I believe my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving.
I'm Alberto.
Hold on. Name and your
is
favorite holiday.
McCormick, and I love Easter.
Okay.
My name is Catherine, and my favorite holiday is Halloween.
Alright.
My name is Evan, and my favorite holiday is Christmas.
I'm Alberto. I went at Trader Dragon.
Okay.
My name is Nick.
And your favorite holiday?
Do you not have one, Nick?
Let's just go with Christmas.
Alright. Your name and your favorite holiday.
Ricky. I like Fox Day.
Okay.
My name is Christopher. I love Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay. What's your name?
I would like for a maiden holiday.
Okay, that's fine. Do you have a favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Alright. So my name's Jordan Smelly. My favorite holiday is Christmas. But I thought I'd kind of give y'all a little bit of my background before we go further. A peer recovery support specialist is someone with lived experience, usually in mental health or substance abuse. In my case, it's intellectual and developmental disability as well as mental health. I have a rare genetic condition. A little bit about me. Growing up was a little different for me than my friends. I was always delayed physically and social skill wise, so I had a hard time making friends. I had a hard time understanding what boundaries are, those type of things. As I got older, I started having more and more issues with mental health, so like depression, anxiety, things along those lines. And then as I got into college, things got worse because in college you're on your own pretty much for support. So back when I was in college, which was 2007 through 2013, there wasn't as much support for people with mental health as there is these days, which kind of led to me being in a lot of in and outpatient treatment for my mental health. And then in July of 2017, I got diagnosed with what's known as PHIP-related disorder. So basically, I have a mutation within one of my genes, and it affected how my brain and neuromuscular system developed, which is why I also wear leg braces. Y'all can't really see them right now because they're under my pants. But I went through peer support as I got older, like while I was in college, and it was something that really helped me. And so that's kind of the pathway I decided to go for a career. So, self-awareness for job accommodations. We're going to start out with a quote. The severity of one's disability does not determine their level of potential. The greatest barriers that persons with disabilities have to overcome are not steps or curves, it's expectations. So society automatically has certain ideas and thoughts about people with disabilities and what they can and cannot do. And this was said by Karen Clay. And for me, one of the things was like when I go play volleyball, I sometimes end up on teams that they rather me not be on their team because of my braces, because they automatically assume that I can't play, which is far from the truth. So, self-awareness definition. So in order to know what self-awareness is and to work on it, you would have to know what it is. So my definition of self-awareness is the ability to recognize your strengths, weaknesses, and personality traits, and understanding how they shape you as an individual. Yes?
I got cartoon.
Okay. So the first thing we gotta define are what are strengths. So strengths are characteristics and or skills that you have mastered or have a strong foundation in. And I have a couple of examples. So in the first example, one thing that sets Jim apart from other applicants is his organizational skills. So in this scenario, Jim's ability to be very organized is a strength of his that sets him apart from others. And then I have one more example. Jane's ability to empathize with her clients make her a very effective therapist. Here, Jane's characteristic of empathy is a strength for her because her level of empathy allows her to be a more effective therapist. So what are some other examples of what a strength would be?
Maybe like if you're good at school or helping people, that would be a strength.
So, yeah, so being good at academics or helping people.
Yeah.
What else?
Going places or helping around the house.
Helping around the house.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Alright. So those are all good examples of strengths. Next, we have to talk about what are weaknesses. Weaknesses are characteristics and or skills in which the individual struggles with executing. So like I talked about earlier and telling you all a little bit about my background. So one of my weaknesses was and still is to some extent social skills. So making friends, keeping friends, those type of deals. So here's another example. Although Jim has excellent organizational skills, he struggles with making friends. In this scenario, alright, before I read this, who can tell me what Jim's weakness is based on what you just heard?
Organizing.
Organize? No, that's his strength, remember?
Grayson, do you have the answer? Or are you just stretching?
I think it's maintaining friendship.
There you go. Maintaining friendship. So the key here is he struggles with making friends. Remember, weaknesses are things or characteristics in which you struggle with executing. Who can tell me what execution means?
Get it done.
Get it done?
There are two meanings. And, well, isn't execution like, in the law, like, killing someone? Isn't that a way of execution?
That is execution, but that's not in the way we're talking about. Because remember, I said executing.
Oh.
Anyone else want to take a stab at it?
Brianna, you want to take a guess?
I don't know it.
Well-
So executing is action. So it's another way of saying you have a hard time performing
Oh,
something. So here's the next example. Although Jane is excellent at expressing empathy towards her clients, Jane struggles with expressing disappointment with some clients. So what is Jane's strength and what is Jane's weakness?
I'm not sure.
Grayson, I think Grayson hasn't.
Grayson?
Her strength is being able to connect with her clients,
Uh-huh.
and her weakness is not being able to express her disappointment with her clients.
Yes.
Good
correct.
job.
good job,
So,
Grayson.
yes. So what are some other examples of things that might be considered a weakness?
Brianna, you want to take a guess at it?
What?
What her weakness? Anyone?
Huh?
Um,
Like, be able to talk to clients, or be talking to people, or be shy.
So social interaction?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a weakness. Grayson?
Lack of expressing emotions.
Lack of expressing emotions.
I'm so sensitive with noise.
Evan, do you have a guess or something to say about that?
No, let's. I'm good.
Anyone else? Alright. What are personality traits? Who can tell me what a personality trait is before I put up the definition?
Nice.
Well, I know what that means.
What does it mean?
It means, like, remember good things.
Remembering things?
Grayson, want to say it?
Personality trait? Okay.
Personality trait would be. Actually, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Ouch.
That's okay.
A personality trait is a person, what makes you you.
What makes you you? Okay.
Grayson has it now.
Yes, Grayson.
Something like being open-minded or being friendly towards others.
Open-mindedness.
Something that makes you.
Friendliness. Something that makes you you. Anyone else want to take us?
It's like your character.
Your character. Anyone else want to take a guess? Personality traits are characteristics that distinguishes the character, action, and attitude of a person. So who can give me an example based off of this definition? Because I have some, but I want to see what y'all can come up with.
Like maybe being positive or outgoing.
Positive and outgoing.
Optimism?
Optimism.
Over here, we got a bigger amalgam here. Ogre here, the Midwest.
So being positive, would that be character, action, or attitude of a
Character.
person? Character, why?
I think because how he looks like or how he acts.
How he acts.
I think being positive would be an attitude, but being optimistic would be a character trait.
Okay. Alright. So, some examples are smiling, cheerful, angry, bitter, honesty, responsibility, etc. Alright. Any questions?
No.
Alright. So we'll go to another quote now. And there is only one way to look at things until someone shows us how to look at them with different eyes. And this was said by Pablo Picasso. So what does that mean?
I think it means you only see what you see until someone gives you their perspective.
Okay. There are no right or wrong answers here, so don't be afraid to speak up.
It might be that.
Maybe point of
You
view.
can see if you see and until someone else sees them for you.
Point of view. What did you say?
You, if you can see, if you can see it until someone else catches it for you.
So being able to see something, not being able to see something until someone points it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all kind of hit it on the head. Basically, this means that we all kind of have a bias, and so we see things one way, and how can we look at things differently unless someone else comes along and shows us that?
Yeah.
So, alright. So now we're going to Job accommodations. What are they? Any of y'all have some guesses before I put my fancy, well, not that fancy, but my chart up?
I'm not sure.
Something you need to get the job done.
Something you use to get the job done?
Yeah.
Okay. Grayson?
An accommodation would be like something that, like splitting a project into two parts. So you gotta do the entire thing in one time.
Splitting.
It's like, it's supposed to help you get something done. But
Okay.
without the pressure.
Okay, without being overwhelmed. Anyone else?
They also pay no rent.
Alright, so I will bust out my chart now. So what is and isn't a job accommodation? What is a job accommodation would be something like flexible work schedule to attend medical appointments. So like, in my case, I see a psychiatrist for my ADHD, and I'm on specific type of medication that she can only give so many refills before she has to see me because of the way it's regulated by the FDA. So whenever I work, it's important that I have a job that understands that every so often I have to go see my psychiatrist for my medicine.
Wait, wouldn't those medications be conservative?
No, because they help me function. So an example of what isn't a job accommodation would be trying to get weekends off so you can hang with your friends. That is not an accommodation.
Nope.
Another example of accommodation would be a service animal. but they have to be registered and trained as a service animal. You can't just like bring your dog from home and say, he's my service animal, unless he's been through the proper training and certification. Another example of what isn't a job accommodation is getting off early for a concert. That's not a job accommodation. That's your boss being nice and working with you.
My manager.
Your manager, your boss, supervisor. So, another possible accommodation, and this one's a little technical, is job restructuring. Who thinks they know what job restructuring is?
Maybe like things they don't want you to do or do because of your medical health. Like things you can't do because of what's wrong with you.
Okay. So things you can't do
Because of some reason.
because of some reason. Okay. Anyone? Grayson?
I think it's similar to changing your work, but having it similar to what you were supposed to do. But
Okay.
it still has the same ending.
Alright, so basically changing your job description to fit
Your personal needs.
what you need for accommodations. Alright, job restructuring. Grayson's on the right track. Job restructuring is where they go in, and I actually have an example on the next slide. But I'll give you all one for me. So for me, job restructuring would be like if I get a job and let's say that I'm supposed to stay on for 8 hours. So let's say I go work at McDonald's, I guess. So I work at McDonald's. Job restructuring would be like me having a stool to sit on while I worked at cash register. So job restructuring is really a change in your environment, if that makes sense. What isn't a job accommodation? Removing essential job duty. Okay, so this is something that we have to talk about. So according to the American Disability Act, employers have to provide you what's called reasonable accommodations. But it also says your reasonable accommodation can't take away an essential job duty. So, for example, I got offered a position in January with an organization, and I would have had to have, at times, help people that are paralyzed from the waist down get in and out of their chair, or if they were to fall out of their chair, help them get up from the floor, or in and out of the shower, things like that. Well, with the way my braces support me, I can't lift the way that the company required. So, when we went through the accommodation request process, it was one of those things where they felt that they couldn't have it to where I don't lift, because that's removing an essential job duty. But at the same time, they were trying to figure out ways that maybe I could still do the same thing and still lift, but do it in a way that doesn't put myself or clients' safety in harm's way. But we weren't able to figure that out. And another thing the Americans with Disability Act talks about is reasonable accommodation unless it falls under undue burden. So undue burden is where your accommodation would be either a huge financial strain on the company, or it would put them at risk liability for safety. So like for my job that I was offered in January, my accommodation fell under undue burden because they just didn't feel comfortable that I could lift safely without putting myself and or clients at risk. Does that make sense? Was essential job duty make sense? Okay, so just to recap, an essential job duty is something that everyone that is hired in your position is expected to do, with or without an accommodation. Alright, so another example of an accommodation, and Grayson kind of touched on this earlier a little bit, more frequent breaks. So, like for me, because of my genetic mutation, I actually fatigue a lot easier than most people, because the way my genetic mutation works is it also inhibits how glucose is absorbed. So whenever I eat or drink things, I don't absorb as much sugar in my body as a normal person does. So I tire out easier. So, and I actually had that when I did my internship for audio production with the hotel, within the hotel industry. I got more frequent breaks. What isn't longer lunch just because you want a longer lunch? So I hate to say this, but if you're a slow eater and it's like has nothing to do with the medical reason, then
You
you're
gotta
not
speed
gonna
up.
be getting, yeah, either speed up or you're gonna need to pack less to eat. Having a water bottle or other necessary liquid foods is a reasonable accommodation. So for this one, who could tell me why having a water bottle or like juice would be a reasonable accommodation? Who would that benefit?
So you can drink your food today, so that you can stay hydrated.
Yes, but what kind of medical issue would this fall under?
Diabetes.
Diabetes. There you
Yeah, I got it.
Diabetes?
go. Yes, because you got to remember with diabetes, you have trouble with your sugar.
Yeah.
I got
Sugars?
I don't
Your
want to get
sugar level, and if it's too low, you
Yeah,
sometimes need juice.
Yeah, so that's what happened to me a couple of years ago.
So, but unless you have diabetes, like another reason to have a water bottle would be like for me, my medications cause dry mouth. So for me, having a water bottle would be a reasonable accommodation because my mouth dries out easier because of my medication. So just note that if you're going to need like some kind of liquid, it's going to more than likely be water unless you're diabetic. And then what isn't a job accommodation is snacking when you feel like it.
Uh-oh.
Some companies, like, they don't care, but other companies have strict guidelines. And so unless you're like diabetic or have some kind of other medical issue going on, snacking whenever you feel like it is not medical. So just know that for a job accommodation, it must be for a medical need. So if you're trying to request something and it doesn't fit the criteria of I need this because of this condition, then it's more than likely not a reasonable accommodation request. But also know whenever you request an accommodation, you need to be ready to submit a document from your doctor saying that you have what you say you have and what they feel a reasonable accommodation would be. So, using self-awareness for job accommodation request. So, you're going to identify your strengths and weaknesses. So, what are your strengths?
The good stuff about you.
The good stuff about you?
Yeah.
Alright, and what are your weaknesses?
Things you need to work on.
Things you need to work on?
Yeah.
Alright, good. Alright, once you identify your strengths and weaknesses, look at your job description and figure out what job duties fall underneath your strengths and what job duties fall underneath your weaknesses. Yes.
Let's say, like, if I was working at Plano West in Guffaw, if I was working at Plano West, let's see, like, boss, I need a little bit more help on this teaching lesson.
Uh-huh.
And I know the counselors that I work for.
So what was your weakness there?
Huh?
What was your weakness working at the school?
Things that I can definitely work on.
What were they? Do you
Life.
remember? Life.
That's a mood.
Job training
Job.
for students.
Okay.
Money skills.
Money skills. Would money skills be a strength or a weakness?
Strength.
Or could it be both?
It could be both.
Or, I mean, either or. Technically, it can't be both for one person. It can be either or.
I work animals.
You work with animals?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so, once you've done this, then using a piece of paper to write down which job duties fall under your weaknesses and identify if a reasonable job accommodation can be requested. And I think we actually have a worksheet.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
It's time for Brianna to take her meds and...
Alexa, you don't have to worry about it. I'll take it at 11:30.
Oh, I thought it was at 11.
Yes, but I can take it at 11:30 because I'm doing this.
Yeah, but she can leave to take it, right?
If she needs to do something to take care of herself, she can do it whenever she needs to.
So this is the transition planning where your goals, what are helping you achieve these goals. It's talking about accommodations and what supports and services. Did you want to do strengths and weaknesses on the back, perhaps?
Yeah, we can do that.
And then we can do this part.
Yeah. Alright. So I'm gonna, Catherine's gonna hand you a worksheet. Flip over to the back side, and I want you to write down 3 weaknesses and 3 strengths that you feel you have. So write down 3 of your strengths, and write down 3 of your weaknesses. Alright, so now that you've written down 3 of your strengths and 3 of your weaknesses, let's look at what John did. John was hired as a cashier at Taco Bell.
Ooh, yum.
While John can do most job duties without an accommodation, he is unable to stand for long periods of time due to a medical condition. John, being self-aware of his weaknesses, meets with his supervisor in private. So that's a key. Meets with his supervisor in private and requests a stool to sit on while working at the cash register so that he can perform his duties of working at the cash register. When John makes the request, he provides his supervisor a doctor's note stating that he does have a medical condition that prevents him from standing for long periods of time, and having a stool to sit on would be a reasonable accommodation for John. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright, because John was self-aware of his weaknesses, he was able to get what he needed in order to fulfill his duties as a cashier. So what was John's weakness?
He had a medical condition in his legs.
Yep.
Step over.
So what did John do?
Asked for a stool.
Step over.
That's right. So, when you go to making job accommodation requests, there's more than one way you can do it. One way is you can do what John did,
Oops.
and hit the TV. And you can wait until you're hired, and then you can meet with your supervisor, and then you can disclose your disability and request the accommodation. Another way is, instead of telling your employer about your disability, if that's not something you're comfortable with, then another way is to, for example, let's say John wasn't comfortable disclosing his disability. So another way John could have done it is to explain to his supervisor that he struggles with standing in one place for long periods of time. And a solution that he thought of that would work is having a stool for sit on if he needs one, for when he knows he's going to be standing in one place for long periods of time. So there, John just did the same thing, but he didn't disclose that he had a medical condition. All he said was he struggles with standing in place for long periods of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, does anyone want to share what one of their weaknesses are?
Oh, whoa, that's a lot.
Alright,
Money handling.
money handling. Alright, so how could you, at your job, get what you need?
Like
Get help.
practice how to handle money.
Yeah, but how can you, like, if you have a hard time handling money, isn't that something your boss needs to know about before he puts you in that kind of role?
No.
Yeah.
So how would you do that?
Like explain to him. I'm having trouble with money. Show me how to work at the cashier.
There you go. Alright, Grayson, what you got?
Being antisocial.
Is one of your weaknesses?
Yeah.
Okay, so how
I'm
can...
working on it.
Yeah,
Good.
but how does being antisocial affect you at work?
I can pick a job where I need to speak to people, and I'm antisocial and I don't speak to them.
So how could you go about getting help that you need in order to do your job?
I'm already working on it.
Well, what did you do to work on it?
Social media,
Social media?
talking to people online.
Talking to people online? But what if you're at work and you have people you need to communicate with, but it's something that you struggle with? What is something
It's
you
because I'm doing that I can eventually be able to speak to people face to face again.
Okay, so your solution is
Working
on social media to get used to conversation.
And another strategy for social anxiety too is usually we have anxiety to talk to people, and so the focus would be anxiety. So counseling can help with the anxiety of speaking if that's something that you're nervous about.
And plus, I'm on medical city 3 times a day, so I gotta speak to some people. When I pass, when I'm on hallways, when I'm on floors, people,
Yeah,
visitors.
sometimes even when you have to talk to somebody, it can be hard though because you might
I
have
do
that.
a 4-hour internship at a
Anxiety.
store.
Okay, so anyone else want to share one of their weaknesses? Alright, what you
I've been patient, so just learning how to move on because the past 2 years, like if I go to a new school or make new friends or something that doesn't go my way, I'll be hard time accepting it and dealing with it. But I just learned that everything happens for a reason, and there are gonna be times when things don't go your way.
Alright, so how can you take being impatient and get the help you need with that at work?
So what
Or supervisor?
I probably do is say for instance, I am at Kogo, which my family goes there a lot to buy groceries for the week. So what I could do to my supervisor or to my manager, say, they have a hard time. I have a hard time being impatient. So, an example of being impatient at Kogo would be, because some customers keep asking questions and like want the things done like that minute. So maybe I could ask if maybe I can also have some assistance when customers are asking questions or want the stuff like want the answer right away.
Okay, so what I was hearing is you get overwhelmed.
It could go either way.
Alright, so if you deal with being overwhelmed, what's one way that you can get help with that from your boss?
Maybe take more breaks or just
Well, what can you ask? Because you're talking to your boss and you're trying to explain to him that you struggle with getting overwhelmed sometimes. So what is a solution that you think would be a good fit for both of y'all that would help you deal when you're overwhelmed?
so maybe I could talk to him about maybe walking away or going to the bathroom to wash my face or just grab a drink of water or take deep breaths to get myself back together.
Okay. Anyone else want to share one of their weaknesses? Alright, what you got?
Let's see about, I was gonna have a hangout with my friend David. We would talk with each other, and we talk about songs what we can do for the Avid tribute band.
Okay, but what's one of something that you struggle with?
Short-term memory loss.
Short-term memory loss, alright? So how can you talk to your boss about that and get the assistance you need?
What? Oh, I'm sorry.
You need some help?
It's okay.
Short-term memory loss.
How could you talk to your
I got this.
you
Alright,
got?
let's say I'm your boss, alright? So you walk into my office and you tell me what?
I'm sorry, boss. I suffer from like short-term memory losses.
Okay, well what can I do to help you with that?
Oh no, it's true. I forget things almost instantly. It runs for my family.
Maybe you could ask for lunch.
I understand that, but how can I help you when you're having short-term memory loss issues at work?
Since I can't remember what to do.
Would it help
all
if
this paperwork?
Would it help if I wrote down your job duties each day?
Yeah.
Okay. See, there you go. You just got help.
Are you sure?
Yes, it is that easy.
It's possible.
Yeah, so easy, Jake.
Okay. Does that make sense, Jake?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Sometimes.
Okay. Alright. Anyone else?
That's hot. Is anyone hot in here? I'm only the one who's hot.
So hot in here.
Yep. Okay. I'm not the
Turn it
one
down
who's
a
hot.
couple.
Alright. Anyone else want to
Thank
share?
you, Ricky.
Alright, does anyone want to share their strengths? Or one of their
stuck.
strengths?
I'm stuck.
You're stern?
I'm stuck.
What do you mean by stuck?
She wrote her down her strengths. It's right here. Okay, I can.
You want me to try to read it?
I work at Hope's store. Working, I wanted to be on times. I take care of own stuff at home. How to use? I take out.
So you're responsible.
Uh-huh.
That's a good strength.
Oh, she put her address on here.
Oops.
And her
Alright.
dad and her mom.
Anyone else want to share one of their strengths?
And her brother.
Not bad.
Well, at least she knows that.
Hardworking.
Hardworking. Alright. Anyone else care to share one of their strengths?
I'll go for it.
Alright.
So one of my favorite strengths is to help people.
Help people.
Same here, Evan. Me too.
It's a good strength, Evan. Anyone else? Alright. Any questions about how to get job accommodations?
No.
Yes. Jake.
If I was working at the Fairview Youth Theater as a drama director, it's for children. Today's musical is very simple. It's called Pessoa, Queen of the Desert.
Okay.
And we are gonna do this for you if I can just find someone to do the choreography.
Do you think that this worksheet kind of goes in hand?
I think it's quoting something.
Yeah. So I'll have another handout for y'all here in a minute. Kind of goes over the steps of how to disclose your disability without talking, or how to get accommodations without disclosing your disability, for those of you that aren't comfortable with that. Let's see. Anyone else want to share a strength or weakness? Alrighty. And then I have some resources for y'all.
Ooh.
Dude, take some walk for it.
Yeah. Alright, so if you ever have questions about whether or not something's a reasonable accommodation, Jan, which is the Job Accommodation Network, they're good people to speak with, and they'll help you. That's their job. Of course, Texas Workforce Solutions Vocational Rehabilitation Program. It used to be called DARS. They can help you with job accommodations. And then Disability Rights of Texas can also be a resource if you had questions.
Yeah.
Disability Rights of Texas is a nonprofit, excuse me,
You're excused.
that helps individuals within the state of Texas with IDD, that are IDD, with like accommodation requests. Like if you feel that your rights have been violated, they can help you with what, showing you what your options are, things along those lines. So they're good. But also remember, just because you request accommodation doesn't necessarily mean that you will get it. You have to remember that it has to fit medical necessity and that it can't fall under undue burden, which usually is either it would cost the company a lot of money or it would be a liability to the company for safety reasons.